question.
Again, too much scrutiny. It's not good.
We got to move on here. Speaking of scrutiny, the biggest trade of the NBA trade deadline hasn't exactly been working out for the Pelicans. Demarcus Cousins and his new squad are 0-3 since he joined New Orleans. Sunday night, the Pelicans lost to the Thunder, and to make matters worse, Cousins received his 18th technical of the season less than a minute into the game. He will now have to serve a one-game suspension. Here's Cousins after the game.
I don't feel like I did anything wrong to receive it, so hopefully the league handles it the right way, and hopefully I get the benefit of the doubt. We got to work on us right now. We got to figure this thing out in house, and that should be the main goal at this moment, which is figuring it out, figuring out what's best for the team, figuring out what's the best way for us to play together.
All right, Stephen A., I know this trade just happened, but what's wrong with the Pelicans?
They're not good enough. They don't have anybody other than the two players that they have. Drew Holiday is a solid player, but he's not a superstar point guard. Anthony Davis is an absolute stud. Demarcus Cousins is a stud offensively. Defensively, he's not intimidating anybody. He's not a shot blocker. He's not a rim stopper. That's not who he is. You combine that with the fact that Alvin Gentry still has a lot to prove as a head coach in this game. Remember, I highlighted last week, as much as I like and respect Alvin Gentry, because he does know basketball, he's been a head coach for 14 seasons in this league. He's had 2 winning seasons. 2. The bottom line is you can't escape that reality. And so we're going to learn a lot about their maturation with one another, but we're also going to learn a lot, even in this short period of time, even with a hellacious schedule, because they had Oklahoma City and Dallas and Houston, these 3 games that they lost. They got San Antonio coming up, I think Utah down the road, Detroit, etc. We're going to find out not just what they're made of, we're going to find out what Alvin Gentry's made of.
This one ain't that hard. Pelicans are no good. I mean, they're not good. They're Anthony Davis and a collection of parts that aren't good enough. Holiday's nice. As you said, he's solid. He's not, the idea that he's supposed to be part of a big 3, stop. He's okay. They're not a good team that just added a major piece who, by the way, essentially plays the same position. They do some things differently that their best player already plays. So anytime you add a huge piece midstream, you have to integrate it, particularly when there's some redundancy. You have to figure out high-usage players, how that's going to work, and the team isn't very good to begin with. The questions about Boogie Cousins being a winning or losing player under any circumstances will be answered partially as time goes on. But the idea that these two couldn't play together, I think, is far-fetched. I think that over time, this team will be better, obviously, for the trade of an extremely talented, valuable piece in Boogie Cousins. And if you think back to Kevin Durant on the Golden State Warriors and how that looked, on a well-oiled machine, you added a Durant who wasn't redundant. Look how they looked against San Antonio early in the season. Terrible.
It is entirely too early to bang the gavel and say this is the way it's going to be, but it's also entirely untrue to not look at this and pass judgment that the Pelicans are worse with DeMarcus Cousins. Right now, they are worse than the team they fielded before they had DeMarcus Cousins. By every statistical measure, plus minus with those two on the floor, offensive rating, they are 7 points, I think it's 7 points worse with these two playing together than they were before the trade. Defense, by the way, also measurably worse. Now, is that because they have 3 guys around them that just simply cannot play? Or is it because guys play worse with DeMarcus Cousins or 2 towers like this? For more than 3 games will answer that question. But you can't beat around the bush. Right now, DeMarcus Cousins' addition to the Pelicans has made that team worse.
As Kevin Durant made the Warriors worse early on.
Well, listen. You got 2 guys that command 25 shots a game and are used to being the #1 option. That's why I bring up Alvin Gentry. Coaching has something to do with it. And here's how you know. Ask any aspiring head coach out there. Excuse me, we got a head coach in opening. And, the 2 guys you got to work with is Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins. Tell me who ain't going to want that job. And that's how you know. What I'm saying to you is this. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you that DeMarcus Cousins can't be a headache. I'm not trying to gloss over some of the distractions that he created. But you don't teach what he brings. And a lot of times I've often said this, and I'll leave it to y'all to answer this question before we go. I've often said this. You don't play, meaning you're a coach. You don't play. Well, what the hell is it that you do? Do you really think as a head coach, particularly in this day and age, with 12 brands on a particular team, depending on which team you're coaching, do you really think that you get to just highlight X's and O's? No. You got to motivate. You got to cajole. You got to massage. You got to do a whole bunch of things because that's what separates the guys who can be in the league as a coach and the guys that can't. You got to do that with the Demarcus Cousins of the world, too.
The question with Boogie Cousins is not only his personality in the locker room, it's does he have the kind of game that is conducive to winning in the modern NBA?
Yes.
For his position, you know what he does best? Pass the ball. Like, people don't understand. Demarcus Cousins is a brilliant player who needs to be in the right situation and coached up right with strong personalities around him in leadership roles. It remains to be seen whether or not that's the Pelicans. But everything he does on the floor is conducive to winning in the modern NBA.
Right now, we haven't even gotten to those problems you just enunciated about Demarcus Cousins. We're not even at motivational problems. We're not even at behavioral problems. We're at X's and O problems. We're at no space on the floor problems. We're at Alvin Gentry problems. Wait till the behavior problems come on.
Okay.
They're going to come.
Yeah, they're going to come. But you can gloss over it if you have the coaching with that talent.
Veteran leadership.
Thank you for being
You
with
bet.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Speaking of beef, we got one that we haven't discussed yet, and we're not talking about Nicki Minaj and Remy Ma. The feud between Shaquille O'Neal and JaVale McGee is over, and you won't believe who ended it. That's next.
The rumors has it that they're going to acquire Andrew Bogut. Well, who's Andrew Bogut? He's a 7-foot guy who I used to call Andrew Bogus until a couple of years ago. But he's a 7-foot guy who's a frontline player, who's a defender, who, by the way, was on the last 2 NBA Finals teams for the Golden State Warriors. Incredibly familiar with who they are, what they like to do, how they like to get things done. So the combination of all those things very well may end up coming down to a LeBron versus Kevin Durant confrontation.
I see what you're doing. Well, first of all, Kyrie versus Steph, too.
Well, I'm saying, but that's secondary.
Okay,
That's
okay.
secondary.
Maybe not in the moment of truth, though.
Secondary.
Maybe not in the moment of truth.
Sure.
I see what you're doing with your styles make fight styles. You show up in the Tom Ford cashmere sport coat talking about style today. Very slick of you, Stephen A.
I do look smooth, don't I?
Yeah, it's a nice coat. I'm not going to lie.
I'm sleepy and still look smooth. But go ahead.
Now, the point is, Andrew Bogut is a defensive presence for sure.
Sure.
But to address the Warriors' weakness, their Achilles heel, he would need to be a guy who's really offensively adept in the low post. Like, you really want to exploit where the Warriors may be weak. It's that, a guy who will demand the ball in the post and exploit the fact that they don't have Andrew Bogut there. The irony is, Andrew Bogut, the offensive player, is not the Andrew Bogut to exploit the absence of Andrew Bogut, the defensive player. He's not that kind of offensive player, really. He can do it a little bit, but he's not really that kind of weapon that you can use against the Warriors. I'm not sure what kind of advantage strategically he gives them.
Well, I appreciate you saying that you're not sure, because I'm very sure. Here's what I'm sure about. The way that Andrew Bogut will be utilized will buffer and augment the stature of a Tristan Thompson, who is an absolute beast against him. Not only that, the combination of Bogut with Tristan Thompson could potentially serve to neutralize a Draymond Green. Draymond Green, that Energizer bunny who finds a way just to get things done, an absolute battler and what have you. It's amazing that today we're going to be talking about JaVale McGee later on, because there's going to be a JaVale McGee sighting. He's going to have to show up, okay, and help out Draymond Green, because between Tristan Thompson and an Andrew Bogut, you're going to have, whether it's JaVale or whether it's Zsa Pachulia, okay, you're going to have somebody that helps out Draymond Green on the boards. And I'm not talking about just in terms of rebounding. I'm talking about just battling down low, making sure that the Cleveland Cavaliers are not able to impose their physical will upon you. This is what you're talking about with the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are marksmen, Max. They will shoot long range. They will beat you. That's their strength. That's how they will do it. But keep in mind, they're also very skilled at getting to the basket. Sure. Nobody gives them enough credit. They get to the basket. They put the ball on the floor. They get to the hole. They are capable of finishing.
You have to
look.
The NBA hasn't changed that much in the sense that you still got to get to the paint, whether you post someone up or whether it's dribble penetration. The whole game is still relying, even the spread, pick and roll, and everything. You got to get to the paint, and the Warriors can do that. So I understand that defensive point for the Cavs, but again, offensively, you're not exploiting the Warriors' defense with these acquisitions. 1. 2, let's look at the big picture here, Stephen A. The Warriors collapsed. They were up 3-1. According to you, if Draymond never fouls out, they win. They win the series.
It's a wrap.
Okay. But there was some daylight. I think they probably still lose. nevertheless, there's debate about that. There's some daylight, and they were exploited by the Cavs. Let's not forget, at home, Game 7, I was there, so were you. 4.5 minutes go by, and the Warriors, the greatest half-court offense in the history of basketball, don't score a single point. So a very unusual thing had to happen for the Cavs to come back, Draymond's suspension, plus that happenstance I just spoke about, for the Warriors to scrape and claw and barely get out by the skin of their teeth on the road with a Game 7 victory. What's happened since then, really?
They acquired Kevin Durant.
The Warriors acquire Kevin Durant, and they lose Harrison Barnes and Festus Ezeli, which were one of the reasons they struggled. Those two players were so inept in that finals that if you simply take them off the team and replace them with anyone else, the Warriors probably win that finals. I mean, that's how bad they were. You take those guys out and you replace them with Durant. And the difference, so it's Durant on the one side between two evenly matched teams. The Warriors probably should have won that series. And on the other side, you add 15 minutes of Darren Williams and whatever's left of Andrew Bogut. And you think that doesn't make the Warriors prohibitive favorites?
Right. Because they're not playing with LeBron. And by the way, you give entirely too much credit to the Warriors' half-court offense last year. I don't. You know what I saw in the Warriors' half-court offense last year? When stuff broke down, Steph or Clay pulled up from 40 and all was well with the world.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. That's not a half-court offense. That's not a half-court offense. That's prolific shooters who you couldn't find for those 4 minutes that you talked about.
Well, why were they open?
And by the way, if their offense was so great, first of all, they weren't always open. And secondly, more importantly, if their offense was so great, as much as I love and respect Steve Kerr, how come they didn't find a way to get Klay Thompson the ball? Think about that.
Because Steph was making careless passes and throwing the ball away.
That was one of the reasons, not the only.
Let's stay with LeBron. So we know a real man can own up to his mistakes, and that's exactly what Greeny did on Mike and Mike this morning. Take a listen.
4-19 is the Cavaliers' record in games that LeBron does not play since he came back. This year, they're 0-4 without him. 0-4. He's playing more minutes than anybody. They have the best record in the East. Love has been in and out. Irving is great, obviously. J.R. Smith has barely played. I've changed my mind. Right now, if you gave me an MVP vote, I would give it to LeBron James. If I had the vote. I've been saying Westbrook all year long. When I heard that stat yesterday, I changed my mind. And I would right now, if I were voting, I would vote for LeBron.
Westbrook did have his 29th triple-double last night, but is LeBron the MVP?